Mine was like that. I would just sit there and stare at the ocean, be obsessed with trying to figure out the puzzle of where the waves were going to come from, which one was going to be best, and try to judge which wave was going to be best before I even paddled for it, all that kind of stuff. I think one of the most important things that you can learn to do is positioning before you get to your feet. So studying how the best surfers are positioning themselves and paddling, how they paddle, the direction they paddle, the cadence, when they start ramping up, how far down the face they start paddling, where they position themselves in the crowd. Watching really good surfers, not even really good high ability ripper surfers, but really experienced surfers who have lineups figured out, you can really learn a lot from. You can bet that I'm going to be surfing until I'm 80 for sure. I train, a lot of it is so I can keep surfing as good as I can, as for as long as possible, but also for longevity. No, I don't. I never feel guilty. I don't feel narcissistic about surfing. I don't feel bad about prioritizing surfing. When I'm 90 years old, if I make it that long, and if I'm in my last moments when I'm 85 or 90 or 95 or 120, I will never, ever regret any surf sessions. I will never, ever regret surf trips with my friends, surf trips with my family, surfing with my kid or my daughter or my son. I'll never, ever regret any of that.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast, the podcast that helps you to be a better surfer in and out of the water. I am your host, Michael Frampton, and that was a couple of quotes from today's guest, Shane Dorian. Yes, the great Shane Dorian came on the show. Shane has done it all in the surfing world. He was a competition surfer back in the Momentum generation, along with Kelly Slater and the likes of. He then went on to have a big wave surfing career. He's done a lot of coaching. I think everyone knows who Shane is. And as you can tell by those quotes, it's a very wide-ranging conversation that Shane and I have. Shane has a depth of surfing wisdom that is very rare. He also has the ability to articulate it, which seems to be even rarer. We talk about everything from ocean knowledge and wave reading, to health and fitness and longevity, to philosophy. And of course, we start off with talking about his introduction into surfing through the early years in Hawaii. But just before I fade in my conversation with Shane, I need to mention the sponsor for today's show, Surf Basis Paddle Trainer. The Surf Basis Paddle Trainer is a simple yet genius little piece of equipment that is far better than any other paddle trainer that I've used. And listeners of this show get a $30 discount using the discount code SURFMASTERY at purchase. You can go to surfbasis.com to find out more about the product and to purchase. Of course, there is a link to that in the show notes. And you can go and listen to episode 123 if you want to hear an interview with the founder. And on that note of surfing fitness, Shane himself has actually started training people. So he does talk about that a lot at the end. So stay tuned for that. And Dorian Core Performance is his website. Again, there's a link in the show notes, of course. So now, without further ado, I shall fade in my conversation with the legend Shane Dorian.
I just happen to be really, really lucky. I'm really busy with things I want to be doing, so I'm grateful for that.
Oh, good. So Let's get into it. Let's start with when and why did you start surfing?
Oh, wow. We're going way back. I was born in 1972 and I started surfing. Well, my parents had a little restaurant on the beach in Hawaii in a little town called Kona. And the beach where the restaurant was a little white sands beach, little white sand beach called Magic Sands. And I learned how to swim there, learned how to body surf there when I learned how to swim basically before I could walk. And then I started body surfing and riding on my dad's back when he was body surfing when I was like 3. And then I got my first real stand-up surfboard when I was 5. And I've been surfing ever since. And I was born and raised in Kona on the Big Island of Hawaii. And this is where I learned to surf.
Okay, so it's basically ingrained into your DNA.
Yeah, I got a really early start. My dad was a waterman. He was a surfer when he was a lot younger. And so, yeah, I just had a lot of exposure at a super young age. And then, I grew up kind of a latchkey kid a lot. So my parents were gone when I would get off the school bus and I would hitchhike to the beach with my surfboard. And I was just from a little town. So I didn't want to play soccer. I thought soccer and football were like hot and sweaty and not that fun. And I just fell in love with surfing at a super young age, and I just been obsessed ever since.
Was there a moment in your early surfing age where it went from something you just did, something your family did, to something that was more than that, and you developed a real passion for it? Or was it a slow process over time?
I guess it was a bit of a slow process. At first it was just something fun to do, right? Like when I first found surfing, and then I went through, like, my family went through a lot with, like, my parents got divorced when I was about 12, 13 years old. And I was getting really good at surfing at that time. And surfing became, like, instead of just being fun, it was like the place that I would go to when I was stressed out or angry or bummed out. I would run away from my problems and go surfing. And so it became so many more things than just fun for me. And then I started getting really good at surfing when I was like 11, 12, 13 years old. And I started competing at a really small level here locally. And then I started going to state contests on Oahu. And then I started meeting kids from Oahu and the North Shore that I ended up becoming really, really good friends of mine. And so yeah, surfing just became all encompassing as I grew up in those kind of formative years. I was basically doing everything in my life that I needed to do, and then I was choosing surfing at every single moment that I didn't need to do something else.
And let's fast forward to now, or a better way to put it is, how would you describe your current relationship to the ocean and surfing, and how has it evolved over time?
I mean, it's like hard to. I mean, we could blow the whole podcast talking about that. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty old, so I've been surfing for an extremely long time. I've been surfing for, 48 years or something like that. So I've been through, like, so many decades, and every decade surfing has looked completely different for me. Like, it was just fun, and then it was like to get away from stress and weird things happening in at home, and then it became something I was obsessed with, becoming a pro surfer, and then I became a pro surfer, and it became work, and it was like chasing points around the world and chasing world titles for 12 years. And then I shifted gears and focused solely on surfing giant waves. And so surfing became this life or death pursuit of a personal challenge, and like a defining thing for me as a human in many aspects, I would say. And then since I've stopped surfing like really giant waves, it's changed again to where, like, now I have two kids, and I was really, like, hoping that they would fall in love with surfing. So I spent a lot of their childhood, you know, kind of exposing them to the ocean, to surfing, to riding waves, to going on little surf trips with me. And so now, like, yeah, life is different. It's evolved in a lot of different ways, but surfing is a huge part of my life still. I mean, I just booked a surf trip, like my big surf trip for the year, and I'm like excited like a little kid. It's about 6 weeks away, and I'm like training for it in the gym and going paddling and trying to make sure that when I get there on my surf trip, I'm like operating at a super high level and I can, like, really enjoy it like a normal person would. You know what I mean? Like, the waves around where I live are pretty mediocre a lot of times. So being a hardcore surfer is a terrible place to live. So I do surf, but it's trying to surf consistently in fun waves is not that easy. So yeah, I'm excited about a surf trip for sure. So I'm still like a kid when it comes to surfing.
Wow. So is surfing been the most consistent thing in your life?
Yeah, surfing has been the North Star, I would say,
Have there
since I
been
was really little. It was the thing that kind of led me in. It truly was like the thing that kept me headed in the right direction, kept me away from, at first, it introduced me to drugs and alcohol and a bunch of, like, shit kids when I was a grommet. And then I started doing bad in school, and surfing was the thing that my surfboard got taken away from me. And I had crappy grades for one quarter. And my mom was like, "Hey, the surfboard's gone unless you get your shit together. You have a very small amount of time before your surfboard's for sure gone all the way." And I got scared straight. So surfing has been like my North Star for sure in a lot of different ways through all of those decades.
Was there moments through that journey where you kind of lost sight of that and didn't surf and wondered whether surfing you were going to give up?
No, no, definitely not. I mean, surfing is just, it's evolved also, right? Like surfing has looked completely different all the time. Like the one time I guess it was probably the at most risk of that happening, like true burnout, was when I had been competing at a super high level for an extremely long time, and I was in my early 30s, and I'd been grinding for 12 years on the world tour, and competing at a high level, and the highs and lows of constant competition, and the glory and the agony of all the emotions just constantly happening. You basically, every single person loses the contest except one person. So it's like brutal on your ego, brutal on your mindset and your psychology and your happiness a lot of times. And then, yeah, so when I stopped competing full time, that was probably at the time where I didn't feel like surfing very much. But then I became obsessed with trying to surf the biggest waves in the world. And then so I then all of a sudden I had this really exciting thing to kind of chase again. And then surfing those giant waves gave me an amazing appreciation for the simplest type of wave riding, which is just like literally just that. Like surfing doesn't even look like anything for me now. I'm stoked to go to Indo to go surf really good waves, but at the same time, I have a mid-length in the back of my truck literally at all times. It's out there in my truck right now. And after the gym or before I run my errands or whatever, I'll just go and surf 1 foot waves on my mid-length, catch like 10 waves and just start the day, watch the sunrise or, just talk to a couple buddies, catch 10 waves, and then I can get on with my day. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, surfing is still definitely a huge part of my life. It's something I use in so many ways, like to bring me joy and to, it's there to get away from any stress in my life. It's a way to travel. Like I instead of just traveling randomly, I still travel to go surfing because I want to go somewhere and actually go surfing. And then, my son is a really avid surfer. He's 19 now and he never comes home. And so I will meet him somewhere in the world and go surfing together. For like last year, I went to Indo and hung out with him for over a month. And it was like the one time in the whole year I got to hang out with my kid. And the only reason is because we both love to surf. So that's what he was going to be there for a long, long time. And so I went and met him there for a month.
Hmm. As a dad for an up and coming professional surfer throughout his journey, have you been his coach as well?
That's a good question. Yes and no. I would say to start, like when he started really liking surfing, at first I never, so first of all, I literally never, I mean, I've been around surfing forever. I've been around competitive surfing forever. I've been around really good surfers forever. It was my life when I was a kid. And I've been around a lot of crazy surf parents and surf dads forever. And so I was very, very, very aware of how weird that whole dynamic is. And I didn't ever want that to be me. And I never even thought it was like a chance, right? Because the chances of a kid falling in love with surfing, getting good at surfing, and then actually turning it into an actual surf career is so minuscule that I knew those chances were, the stats are completely against him. And so I just wanted to like expose him to surfing so he would enjoy surfing. So, if he had a college break, he could go with his buddies and go surfing because he knew how to do it. And, or if you know, he could travel and go meet people through surfing, right? Surfing is just brings joy into your life. So I just wanted that for him, to be honest. And then when he became really into surfing and he was obsessed with, improving, he knew that I knew what I was talking about. So he would always like show me his clips and he would want me to film him. And then I ended up being like a de facto coach. And because I mean, like objectively, I'm not a crazy surf dad. He felt super safe and he felt like I was a safe place to go to for that kind of feedback. And I love helping kids get better at surfing. I love helping kids specifically get better at fundamental surfing, like their actual surfing fundamentals. Not so much, I'm a pretty good, like a competitive strategic coach, but more so really enjoy helping kids get better just at the act of surfing. So that was really fun way for us to bond as well because we spent 5 years like every single day before school, after school. And then when he started doing online school, we were together like bonding like crazy because he was obsessed with surfing. And I was the person who was filming and coaching and hanging out with him all the time and giving him that feedback. So we have a really, really close bond because of surfing, which I'm really grateful for.
Mm, yeah. I'm sure your background in surfing is a big influence on him, either directly through video analysis, but probably a lot indirectly too. So it makes me think of, I'm sure you're aware of someone like Remy Warren, who's
Yep.
a hunting outfitter. Whereas,
Yep.
as I think as a surf dad, there's plenty of times where you're not filming from the beach or anything, you're just out having fun, and you might be sitting there and you go, "Did you see that little black spot and that little twinkle on the horizon? That means there's a set coming from the west. We should probably paddle over there because I think there's wide sets coming." And just all those little the fine details of reading the ocean and reading the water. Is that something that you were conscious of imparting during his as he grew up surfing?
Yeah, for sure. Not enough because he's not the greatest. He's spent so much time in the ocean in his life. It's ridiculous. So, but like ocean awareness and especially like wave knowledge, like he's not naturally like a Gabriel Medina or something like that, where he's doing his brain's not doing data analysis with like wave conditions while he's staring at the ocean. Mine was like that. I would just sit there and stare at the ocean, be obsessed with trying to figure out the puzzle of where the waves were going to come from, which one was going to be best, and try to judge which wave was going to be best before I even paddled for it, all that kind of stuff. But I did spend a zillion hours with him, showing him lineups, teaching him about reefs, showing him how to get in and out of the water at safely at even the sketchiest waves. I would take him because I had so much experience. I would feel super comfortable taking him surfing like pretty heavy waves when he was really, really little. And I would boost him in to these really good waves because he had a really high ability level on the wave, but he was so tiny he could not catch them. So it was like, and that's like a controversial topic, right? A lot of parents, a lot of people would be like, you should never, once your kid can stand up and paddle on his own, he's on his own. And then other parents are like crazy pushing like their 20-year-old kids in at the peak at trestles. Like, there's a wide spectrum there. But for me, it was more of, I saw that time in the ocean together. And even the time when I spent like pushing him in as just a way to bond with my kid. It was just so much fun to have those moments where I would help him get a good wave and I could just hear him screaming on the wave and like all excited when he was learning how to surf. And then when he started getting good, like him yelling and screaming, telling me about his wave as he was coming back out. Those kind of moments are like the greatest. They're better than winning surfing competitions for me. They're more memorable than some of the waves I've caught in my life at Pipeline and Jaws and Cloudbreak. So
Yeah, I've always thought that the hardest part of surfing is what happens between when the surfboard is under your arm and under your feet. All that stuff of reading the ocean, being in the right place, choosing the right wave. To me, as I grow older, as I become better at reading the ocean and negotiating the rhythms, that's what makes me a better surfer. Do you agree with that? And do you have any insight into how that's evolved over the years?
literally that's all I did for like 20 years. The first 20 years of my life was just in the ocean, scanning the horizon, looking at every lump, looking at reading what the wind was doing. And then just became obsessed with every single part of getting better at surfing. And then in the last 10 years or 15 years, I'm like purely focused on enjoying surfing, literally just having fun. I ride weird boards, I ride weird fins, I ride mediocre waves all the time. I'll be at Kandui Villas and the waves will be firing somewhere and I'll go surf somewhere super rando just because there's no one out. And I just gonna surf and just have less people around and want to just chill out and surf with one or two other people. And sometimes I'd rather get a a mellow session with just a few friends than world-class waves with 80 of my best friends. And then just my perspective of what brings me joy in surfing has changed. I don't come in, wow, I was really ripping today. I had so much fun because I was shredding so hard. Those days are like behind me. And it's not only because of my age, it probably has something to do with that. But to be honest, it's more of just my arc, my life arc in surfing. There was such a long time, 3 decades of high performance obsession. And so learning more about ripping or learning more about getting better at reading waves, I don't know, it's just not even on my radar anymore. It's more about enjoying the ocean and riding waves and going on surf trips with my family or going down the coast with a buddy or going for a session with a friend I haven't seen in a long time or surfing with my daughter, 1 foot waves on a longboard. I don't know. That probably sounds unsexy and not that fun, but I'm sure there's listeners out there that can relate to that. The simplicity of surfing is something that I don't think is underappreciated, and I think that's a good thing.
Oh, I definitely relate to all of that. But I guess the question is more, so you went through that time period where you were obsessed with, basically when you're sitting out the back, you're scanning a little between the horizon and where you are. There's a little sliver of
Yeah.
ocean. You got to try and read what's going on and predict where the waves are going to be before anyone else. And you said you were obsessed with that for a period of time. If you hadn't been obsessed with that for a period of time, in which that almost became natural, like driving a car. At first, you have to really concentrate on it, and now you can text while you're driving now. But if you didn't have that period of time where you were obsessed with that, do you think that you would be able to be in a position where you don't have to think about it now and you just enjoy surfing on a different level?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a couple parts to that answer. Number one, because of my that obsession for so long, and because I have this specific niche of tons and tons and tons of educational hours in the ocean doing exactly that, what you just described, I'm able to like navigate any lineup in the world still. Like sometimes I won't surf for a month. That's pretty unusual, but say I'm going to Indo and I have a bunch of work or I'm traveling or doing whatever, or the waves are flat around my house, and then I'll go to Chopo in Tahiti. I'll get off the plane and go straight out in the boat and feel like pretty damn comfortable in the lineup. Like no worries after all the experience I have, or I'll go to Indo and I will just immediately be able to navigate the lineup, pick out really great waves in the sets, know where to sit, know how to have a good flow in the ocean and kind of like sort of sort out what's happening with the tide and the sets and the flow of the crowd, like all that stuff. When you've surfed as long as I have, and immersed yourself in it totally, your brain becomes like artificial intelligence for surfing.
Mm.
Like it's like if I had to drive a Formula One car and it was performing 95% as good as it could, I would never know the difference. But some guy who that's all he does, and I don't know any Formula One drivers, but I guarantee you the best guy in the world, like he could tell the difference between a car that's operating at 95% and one that's operating 100%. Your brain just becomes just through like analysis for forever. I don't know, that's really boring to talk about, but yeah, my brain is I have a surf brain. It's been like developed over decades of just literally thinking about surfing, like eating, sleeping, and doing surfing forever.
Yeah. Oh, it's not boring at all. My listeners love nerding out about these things, and so do I.
Nerd, I love it.
Oh yeah, I wonder. Because I think every great surfer has that side of them. Often they sort of hide it and make it seem magical or mystical, which is the right thing to do probably. But it's cool to because we've got a lot of older surfers that started later in life, as you know, and people that just want to get better at it. And I'm always saying, well, it's your ability to read the ocean that makes the difference, and that's what makes great. That's why Kelly Slater's so good because he reads not only the waves coming in, but while he's on the wave, he can read where to put his rail better than most, and he has the natural athletic ability to do that as well, obviously. But the foundation is actually reading the way the water's moving, reading the wave, knowing where to put your rail, the timing, the rhythms, all that sort of stuff. But let me ask you a specific question around that. It is a hard one to answer, but do you have any tips for surfers on how to read the ocean and read water on a high level? Are there any insights there?
I mean, it's hard. You can't really fake that. If you truly want that, if that's truly what you really, really want, there's no video you can watch on how to do that. It's studying conditions and studying the lineup and studying actually actively analyzing in real time what's happening all around you while you're sitting there waiting for waves or when you're paddling back out. and analyzing how different swells are hitting the point or the reef or the sand where you're surfing, and analyzing what the tide is doing in real time, what's happening. If a section of the wave you're surfing is getting shallower by the minute because the tide's going down, just like, having awareness, having a lot of awareness of what's happening around you, how other people are riding waves, or how other people are positioning themselves before the wave actually breaks. I still do a lot of coaching with surfers, and I've coached a lot of really elite surfers like a Pipeline or Chopo, and like for those type of waves, it's more extreme. But this is like a really good tip. It really, I think one of the most important things that you can learn to do is positioning before you get to your feet. Get a wave like Pipeline, it's everything, right? You can take a crazy late drop at Pipeline, have the most masterful takeoff, perfect style, everything's perfect, critical takeoff, and then you totally miss the whole barrel because you're just in the wrong spot, right? You can do, but, or you can just have taken off in the right spot, maybe 20 feet deeper with the identical drop, identical style, and everything's perfect. And you get the best ride of the year, the best ride of your life. So studying how the best surfers are positioning themselves and paddling, how they paddle, the direction they paddle, the cadence, when they start ramping up, how far down the face they start paddling, where they position themselves in the crowd. Watching really good surfers, not even really good high ability ripper surfers, but really experienced surfers who have lineups figured out, you can really learn a lot from. It's almost like looking at it's almost like having a study buddy in school who is just a weapon at math and then kind of teaching you the behind the scenes. So whenever I'm out at Pipeline, I'm always watching John Florence, Nathan Florence, Jamie O'Brien, Kelly. And since I was a little kid, I was always watching when I very first started surfing Pipeline, I was watching Marvin Foster and Mickey Nielsen and Dane Kealoha and Johnny Boy Gomes. I was watching how those guys where they would sit. I would sit next to them and I would just try to find lineups exactly on the beach with a tree and a house lined up together exactly where Johnny Boy would sit. I would do that, try to get as close as I could without him getting angry at me. And then I would do the same thing with the guys who were surfing really good at Pipeline. And I just became obsessed with I felt like it would accelerate my learning curve by really paying extreme attention to people who were better than me. I guess so for someone who's just learning to surf, or they're like an average surfer, if there's a high level surfer surfing at the break you're surfing, try to really, instead of being annoyed that guy catches all the waves, actually try to take a step back and watch what that person is doing. Watch how he's approaching the crowd and navigating that, and approaching the wave, where he paddles, where he kicks out, where he gets in and out of the water. I mean, it's not the greatest example, but my local break is full of sea urchins, and I live in Hawaii, and it's lava rocks and coral and sea urchins, and there'll be 15 people surfing, all local people surfing in the lineup who surf there every day. They've surfed there for decades. And someone who fully surfs pretty decent will walk up with their board, take it out of their board bag straight from the airport, walk down to the beach, watch it for 30 seconds, and then start walking straight out over the reef, over all the urchins. And all these local people are on the beach, not ask, hey, where do I get out? Are there urchins? Don't wait 5 minutes to see someone come in or go out so they can see where the locals are going in or out. They just have no awareness. And I think that's a really good example of what not to do.
Mm. Yeah, that's some great advice. Mm.
So awareness is a big one for
Yeah, oh,
sure.
yeah. What's harder, big wave surfing or bow hunting?
Oh man, that's really good. For me, bow hunting, for sure. They're both good. They're both really, really difficult. And they're both really difficult in some super similar ways. And that is why I love them both. And that's probably why I'm kind of good at both. But I feel like maybe it's just my confidence is super high in surfing. I haven't surfed Jaws in years and years. But if it was really big tomorrow and it had really good conditions and I knew my board worked, I could paddle out there and catch a giant wave tomorrow morning, first wave for sure. And I would have total confidence. And I'm 53 years old. I won't choose to go do that because the reward is really not worth the risk for me, right now at this point in my life. I don't want to be out for a year if I rip my ACL in half. Those days are over for me. But I have the mental capacity to keep my cool still, to stay calm as that 25-foot wave is approaching. I don't lose my shit. I don't start shaking. I don't start panicking. I don't start breathing hard. I'm calm, really calm, even in like really heavy conditions still. Bow hunting, man, sometimes it'll take me a whole day to get a really good stalk. I'm a bow hunter only, so I'm trying to get really in close range to an animal that their life literally depends on their awareness and their ability to detect me, to smell me, hear me, see me. And it is very unfair. Their ears are a zillion times better than mine. Their eyes are way better than mine. Their nose is unbelievable. The wind just puffs in their direction. You could be 200 yards away and they're just running for the hills. They don't go, oh, what's that smell? It's kind of coming from that. They just don't do that. They're, especially deer, and that's what I hunt the most. So anyway, my point being is like the moment of truth when I'm trying to get the full draw with my bow, when there's an animal there that I've been stalking for 5 hours, and then he'd laid down before I could get a shot, and I have to wait 3 or 4 hours for him to stand up, and I'm on my knees that whole time trying not to get cramps and trying to keep my cool and not fall asleep. And then he stands up and trying to keep your heart rate down, and knowing this is the moment of truth, and that all the thousands of arrows you put into the target for the last 6 months, this is the moment of truth. And if that arrow doesn't hit its mark, that's it. You're not getting it. The animal's gone. The whole opportunity is gone. A lot of times the whole trip is gone. You don't just like paddle back out and try again. I mean, you can, but the wave's not coming again a lot of times when you're bow hunting. So anyway, my point is bow hunting is super hard. It is depending on the animals you're hunting, specifically the kind of hunting that I love the most is the most challenging. This week I'm going to go hunting for axis deer, and axis deer, it's called chittle in New Zealand and in Australia, but they're like an East Asian deer. They were in Burma and Sri Lanka and a lot of these kind of places, and they're the predator that they were most worried about were lions, and actual like lions and tigers. And so they have like a crazy vertical leap. They have really wild, like my bow shoots super, super fast. And I can make a perfect shot at only 20 yards on a deer, on this kind of deer. And it might hit them terribly, even though my shot was perfect, because their reaction time is, it's like The Matrix, like that movie, The Matrix, like that. Like they hear that arrow, and it's my bow's super quiet. They hear that arrow, they know that that's not natural, and they react crazy fast, and they spring into action. And so a lot of times, man, it's just what I'm saying is it's super challenging, I guess, in the best way, for sure.
Do you think the big wave surfing helped you to get better at bow hunting? Because I'm assuming you started that after you were a big
Yeah.
wave surfer.
Surfing in general made me a better bow hunter for sure. I mean, I was a really impatient kid. I had ADHD, hardcore, like super duper impatient, really hyperactive when I was a little kid. And then through surfing taught me patience, especially surfing places like Pipeline. You can't be impatient. You're never going to get a good wave unless you're patient. And so surfing made me patient. Surfing big waves made me incredibly patient, because instead of getting 10 waves in a big wave session, I wanted one wave. I wanted the wave that was going to change my life. I wanted the wave that I was going to think about 50 years later. You know what I mean? I wanted the unforgettable wave. That's all I cared about. And so if that's your goal, surfing big waves, you need to be hyper patient. So I'm a really patient person now. And that has probably been my biggest weapon as a bow hunter. That is my best trait as a bow hunter, is my patience, for sure. I will sit out a deer that is laying down for 5 hours. I'll sit 30 yards away from that deer, and if the wind doesn't change, I'm waiting for that deer to stand up before I take a shot.
Is there anything on your bow hunting journey that's helped you to be a better surfer?
Um, I don't know about that. Not all about better surfer, more of an appreciative surfer. I've been going to Australia. I went to Australia probably 30 times before I went bow hunting in Australia. And when I went bow hunting in Australia, I was like, I thought I had already seen all of Australia. And all of a sudden I was in the mountains in Australia. It's like a totally different part. I didn't even know this place had mountains, and I was getting snowed on and there's snakes and you're like in big country and hiking and camping and like meeting really unusually super interesting Australian bow hunters. And it was just awesome. I had such an appreciation for the country of Australia. And I hunted in New Zealand a lot. And yeah, I mean, I think just appreciating nature, appreciating solitude, being out on your own, being challenged physically, psychologically, like the challenge of doing a 10-day on my own bow hunt in Colorado in alpine alpine terrain where it's literally snowing and there's bears around, there's mountain lions, there's wolves. I've done those hunts completely by myself for 10 days and you really get to know yourself. So there's a lot of similarities with surfing. You learn a lot about yourself being a surfer, especially when you travel alone or have, solo sessions or yeah, I mean, just the appreciation for nature, being in the wild.
Yeah, that's a good balance. Obviously, we live in society, so it's always good to get in touch with nature, whether that's surfing, but
Yeah.
to mix it up with some bush and some mountains is a nice. You got the two ways to connect with nature: the ocean and the beach, and then the mountains and the forest.
Like you said, there's so much of our lives these days is we're sitting here right now looking at each other on laptops using the internet. Like, these things have changed our lives. Like, so much of our lives are like, we know what's going on with social media up to the minute at all times. We're always in constant communication. We're inundated with all this content and visually stimulated at all times of the day, of the week, of the year. So carving out time for ourselves to go surfing or bow hunting or camping with your kids or fishing or whatever your deal is, I feel like that is getting lost on so many people because, technology, innovation, these things are designed so perfectly to capture our full attention and it's working. So, I mean, I think we need to fight to really keep enjoying. I think we're really lucky. Our generation is lucky that we still do truly enjoy simple things. Some of my favorite things in the world are just unplugging, getting away from my phone and my computer and being in the outdoors. And I hope I never lose that. That's something that I feel like my kids definitely have an appreciation for the outdoors, surfing, hiking, snowboarding, camping. Those things are so important.
Yeah, part of what happens when you're a top level athlete, especially as you age, injury becomes something that happens. And I know you blew your knee out. How long ago was that?
It's probably 4 years ago now. Yeah, I wrapped it around a tree snowboarding.
Yeah. And how long were you out for, and what was coming back like?
I mean, it's not like all of a sudden, it wasn't like, oh, I was out for 10 months and then I could go surfing again really good. It was like I was out of the water basically for like 10 months because I couldn't surf. And then another 6 months of surfing horribly. No power, my leg was not bending. I was surfing in a big, huge brace. I couldn't surf any heavy waves. It was basically like a year and a half recovery until I was surfing okay again and out of a brace.
You've got a new project, Dorian Core Performance, I think is the Instagram handle, which is surf longevity stuff. And you're saying that you're feeling fitter and stronger now than you did 10 years ago. How do you go from essentially a career-ending knee injury to, and then as you age, to making a statement like that? How?
Well, I mean, there's truth to that for sure. I definitely feel more fit than I did 10 years ago. But 10 years ago, I had a really bad back. So like even before the snowboard injury, I was dealing with a back that was very unstable. My back would go out, as they say, like probably three plus times a year. And when it would happen, it would go out for I couldn't surf for 5 or 6 weeks, like 4 to 6 weeks. That would happen 3 or 4 times a year. So there was like a 5 or 6 year period I was only where I could only surf like 60 or 70% of the year because my back was so weak and so unstable, and I was living in a lot of pain. I eventually had to started saying no to going on surf trips and no to going on bow hunting trips. And then I couldn't go surf heavy waves. And it was really starting to get in the way of the things that I loved most. And it was freaking me out. And then that led me to really changing up the way I was training physically. That led me to doing different therapies. That led me to doing a lot of research and eventually getting stem cell treatments. That was also like that happened at the kind of the same exact time as my knee injury. My first stem cell treatment was because of my knee injury. So yeah, so as I recovered from my knee injury, I really wanted to get my fitness back. My leg had atrophied, my quad and my hamstring and my glute on that side, and even actually on the other side, my body just switched those muscles off. And so my quads, especially my left quad, got so small. And so I had to like work really hard in the gym to get that muscle back. And, I was in my late 40s, late 40s, early 50s, late 40s, trying to get muscle back on my body, and it wasn't easy. So anyway, during those 5 or 6 years when my back was sore in my mid to late 40s, I definitely I may have looked pretty fit, but I wasn't very fit. And now I actually feel really fit. I can surf, 3 or 4 hours a day. I'm 53, so my back isn't perfect, but it's a lot better than it used to be. It's durable. I still surf. I mean, I surfed like last year, I surfed 8 to 10 foot chopo and took multiple beat downs. I'll still surf really heavy waves at Pipeline. I can paddle really hard and I can surf 3 or 4 hours consistently. I mean, I train at the gym like as much as I want and my back feels great. Yeah. So to answer your question, I am fitter than I was a decade ago, which feels amazing.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people listening that will be, I guess, well, maybe I'll describe it from my experience as sort of as I was sort of aging. I had pretty bad knee injury. I'm 45 now, and I think in my early 40s, I got told, bone on bone on your knee. I had back issues
Yeah.
as well. Life gets in the way, surfing, and I was like, oh, maybe surfing's not my thing anymore. Maybe I'll just go sometimes with the kids or whatever. And I went through that sort of down phase, and then still kept and he went back into the gym and got stronger and learnt to move around a bad knee. And just I think
Yeah.
what really my rather than trying to be an athlete in the gym, it was sort of, well, how can I move and keep strong without hurting myself? Which makes you slow down and become more aware of your body in general and also your capabilities. And I think that body awareness combined with a bit more realistic expectations on my surfing abilities and the time in the water, etc. I'm actually enjoying surfing so much more now, and I'm not a better surfer in terms of a performance shortboarder, but I'm a better surfer in terms of the way that I move, the waves that I catch, the choosing the right boards and the right times to go, etc. So I'm really trying to impart that on my clients and listeners of this podcast is that just because you're getting older doesn't mean that you have to stop surfing or even stop surfing certain types of waves. It's just a certain amount of awareness and expectations that have to go along with it. And I just want to inspire people to keep moving and to keep active and to keep surfing. Have you got any
Yeah.
tips
I mean,
for
if
us?
surfing, if you're not intentional and have a plan, surfing will go away. It won't be a realistic thing in your life when you're in your 50s if you don't do something to keep it there. It doesn't happen on its own anymore. When we're in our 20s and our 30s, you have to do zero work for the most part, unless you have crazy injuries you're coming back from. But when you're in your mid to late 40s, and I would say 50s for sure, and even 40s, you, in order to keep surfing at a pretty good level, you may not surf as good as you surf when you're way younger, but to surf, say you like surfing really good hollow lefts and Indo, you can't just do that. You can't just do that once a year and just think it's going to always be there like it was when you were a kid. You have to be intentional. And then there's two parts of it. For me, I just changed the way I look at training. When I was training when I was younger, it was all about performance, only for high performance surfing. And then when I was surfing really big waves, my training was like I was going to war. It was literally for life and death. I was training for lung capacity and holding my breath. My static breath hold was over 5.5 minutes. And my breath hold under hardcore pressure, like high heart rate was like 1 minute and 45 seconds. That's the kind of training I was doing because I wanted to survive. And now the training and has like lots of weights and tons of volume and beating the crap out of my body. And it worked really good to make myself extremely mentally resilient and confident. But I don't really need that anymore. So my training has changed. So now I think of my training as how can I train to have surf longevity, to have surfing in my life as long as possible, to be able to go to Indo for the next 20 years and go surf high quality waves that may not always look the same because of, physical limitations, but you can bet that I'm going to be surfing until I'm 80 for sure. And I'm doing everything I can to put myself there. So my training is like a lot of it has to do with a lot of mobility, strength and flexibility and mobility and endurance. And there's a few ways to do that. And then the other thing is my training has a lot to do with my longevity in general, apart from surfing. So I never knew that your muscle, I always thought of a muscle as something that was more aesthetic or for strength, but your muscle is it truly is your metabolic armor. It protects your brain. It protects our muscles after the age of 35. Our muscle starts going away mathematically and systematically every single year if we don't do something about it. And when you start losing your muscle, you start losing your bone density, your bone mass. That's why old people, when they fall down, they have brittle bones because they don't have that muscle mass anymore. So I'm trying to keep muscle on my body, high quality skeletal muscle on my body for strong bones, for strong bone density, for my brain health against Alzheimer's and dementia. There's so many different things that are huge benefits from actually training. I train a lot of it is so I can keep surfing as good as I can, as for as long as possible, but also for longevity. Now, a lot of the guys I'm working with one on one, that's what I mean, they can relate to that. I am my client. They love to surf. They want to do it as much as possible. They have one big Indo trip on the calendar per year, or two big surf trips per year that are super, super important to them. And they want to hit the ground running when they get there, even though they barely surf for the last 6 months. They want to perform at their highest level and be able to surf 2 times a day, every day for 10 days, because it's their one surf trip for the year, and it's crazy important. And they identify as a surfer, and I can totally relate to all that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I went through a stage where I sort of thought, oh, it's just surfing. It's such a narcissistic pursuit. How dare I let it motivate so much in my life? But then I was like, you know what? So what? I can still be a little kid. And so what if booking one surf trip a year inspires me to eat healthy for the rest of the year and exercise 3 times a week, then that's awesome. And I think some people struggle with that as you get older. You sort of think surfing is just surfing. Well, you're a surfer, own it. Did you ever go through that, or do you have clients that go through those thoughts?
I mean, I think about that specific topic in the most simple way. No, I don't. I never feel guilty. I don't feel narcissistic about surfing. I don't feel bad about prioritizing surfing. When I'm 90 years old, if I make it that long, and if I'm in my last moments when I'm 85 or 90 or 95 or 120, I will never ever regret any surf sessions. I will never ever regret surf trips with my friends, surf trips with my family, surfing with my kid and my daughter and my son. I'll never ever regret any of that. I won't I'll regret a whole lot of other things, like, probably be like, oh, I probably shouldn't have worked so much, or I probably shouldn't have spent so much time sitting in traffic or whatever, but I'm never going to regret all the mornings I watch the sunrise from sitting on my board and talking to my friends and watching the sunset and being on a surf trip. Fuck that. That's life. That's what life's all about.
That's a great answer. That's a perfect answer. Yeah, and it's the conclusion I came to. And yeah, it's nice to hear that. Tell us about your new project. You posted like a little mini Instagram video of a simple bodyweight exercise routine that I saw on Instagram, and that's my background, both as a surf coach but as a personal trainer, and I've been through all the different types, and I was like, Shane knows what he's doing. Just the movements you were doing, the simplicity, the body awareness that you did it with, it really resonated with me, and that's sort of what made me reach out, and here we are talking now. But can you tell us more about that project and what inspired it?
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, very strange. I don't really have a great answer for that. I didn't see this coming at all, to be perfectly honest with you. There's so many different pieces of that question, but in my mind, so many different answers. But essentially, I love fitness. I have for a long, long time. I have a lot of experience training for different things, right? For high performance surfing, as a high performance athlete, as a big wave surfer, with that goal in mind. And then now for longevity. And then I ended up coaching a lot in the last 10 years. I started coaching Italo Ferreira at Pipeline, and Ethan Ewing and Lakey Peterson and Caroline Marks. And then I was the head coach for the US Olympic surf team for Paris 2024. So I love coaching. I love working with people. I love being able to help and bring value to people. And I had two different friends of mine they're fitness coaches, and they were like, "Man, I think you should probably look into that. I think it would be fun for you. I think you'd actually like helping people. And if you could wrap your head around like putting yourself out there, I think you should try it and see if you liked it." And I was just it just hit me out of left field. I was, whoa. I was like, I'm not going to put myself out there as a online fitness coach. That's the way you get clients, is on Instagram, like putting yourself out there so people know what you're doing. Oh my gosh, that's going to be so cringy. I'm going to feel so silly. Everyone's going to think I'm such a kook or whatever. Like, and so I really wrestled with it for a while. And then I was like, man, like, just like you only live once. Like, this could be fun. I don't know if I'll like it or not, but I'm gonna see. And then I was actually already working with a few people in my circle of friends, that because I'm like the fitness guy out of our larger friend group, right? So they'll hit me up for nutrition advice, training programs, training advice. So I was already helping people who were getting really incredible results. I had two different people actually specifically that had wild transformations, like you wouldn't believe transformations. And I was like, man, I really loved helping those guys change their lives. And so I was like, screw it. I'm going to see if I like online fitness coaching. And so I worked on launching it for a while, for launching the business. There's a lot of behind the scenes work that went into launching an online fitness coaching business that you wouldn't think. And anyway, I got started, and I was hoping to have 5 clients at the start and kind of just get my feet wet, kind of really learn to become a really good online fitness coach and kind of learn about what that means. And so what I do with my clients is I essentially like mine is really kind of hyper personalized one-on-one online coaching. So my clients, I'll work with them from the very start with like I consider all the information from their age, their height, their weight, their goals, their aesthetic goals, their performance goals, like how they're going to use their fitness, their injuries, like their past injuries, their current injuries, their physical limitations, what their expertise is like in the gym. Do they have a lot of experience? How many days they're currently working out? What type of workout are they on? All of their food program, their food habits, whether they have a sweet tooth, alcohol. I go into the details on a granular level to get all of the information I possibly can about that person and make a hyper personalized and customized training program for them to reach their goal. And then I also do the same thing on the nutrition side. So I essentially build out very structured guidelines for their food program to make it extremely simple and frictionless to meet their goals. So that's basically what it is. And then I provide accountability through face-to-face Google Meet calls just like this, once every 2 weeks with each and every one of my clients. And just we spend time assessing how things are going with the programming, how their body's feeling, how the results have been, what's happening, if they're on a weight loss journey, what's happening with the scale, and are there any yellow flags in their body, and then we'll make adjustments for the next 2 weeks. And that's kind of how the coaching works. And so far, I love my clients. They're fantastic. Some of them are getting incredible results, and I'm enjoying it.
Awesome. You outlined a really, really intelligent approach. I like that. It's rare. So good on you for putting yourself out there and actually doing it, because I can see when you look at some of the online fitness coaches and programs out there, it can be pretty cringy, but you just basically outlined the personalized, detailed approach is the way to go, really. Where can people go to find out more?
Just my website is doriancoreperformance.com, or you can just search online, Shane Dorian Online Fitness. It'll probably come up somewhere. That's the way the internet works. But yeah, I'm liking it. It's really cool. It's very I'm keeping it pretty small. It's not like I can't coach 100 people. So I have a limited amount of people that I'm working with. But yeah, I'm really liking it. And I have an amazing roster of clients.
Awesome. And you've been posting some free tips on Instagram as well. I have links to Shane's website and Instagram and stuff in the show notes. But Shane, thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it too.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Surf Mastery podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with a friend and make sure you are subscribed to this show on whatever app you are using. If you liked what Shane and I were talking about in regards to ocean awareness and reading the ocean, positioning, Shane gave some really great advice and gold nuggets in there. But if you want to learn more about all that stuff, the 99% of surfing that we tend not to talk about, that is what my course is all about. It's all about what happens in between when the surfboard is under your arm and under your feet. It's all about techniques for reading the ocean, what to look for, positioning, paddling, and the pop-up. That is what the Surf Mastery mini course is all about. You can check out more details and purchase that at surfmastery.com. It's cheaper than a second-hand surfboard that you probably never rode. Again, thanks for tuning in and keep surfing.